All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we are going deep on the Rolex Day-Date 36.
The president's watch.
Exactly. And we've got this article here that really breaks down the newest design. And it's causing some, well, controversy, shall we say, in the watch community. I mean, this thing's just got a massive price hike.
Yeah, it's a lot.
So we're going to figure out why people are willing to spend so much on it, right?
Right.
Plus, we'll try to answer that big question. How does a watch stay timeless when the design keeps evolving?
That's the thing about Rolex, right? They're always walking that line between their history and, staying modern.
Yeah.
And the Day-Date especially, I mean. It's like every little change they make just sends shockwaves through the whole watch world.
It's true. And what's interesting is this author, they're a huge Day-Date fan. But even they admit it's like a love-hate thing. It's like that love where you kind of roll your eyes at how over-the-top it is.
Oh, yeah.
They even say it could be repulsive in the wrong situation.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine this someone wearing like a plain white T-shirt, but then with a solid gold Day-Date?
Oh.
Is there such a thing as too much gold on a watch?
I think that's where that status symbol thing comes in, right? The Day-Date has always been, I don't know, it's always said something about the person wearing it, like they've made it or something. Right. So for some people, that's part of why they love it. But it also makes you think, right? Like, is the watch there to make the person look good, or is the person just there to show off the watch?
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, this article really gets into the 2019 redesign, with the case. Rolex went with these softer curves compared to the old, like, trapezoid case.
Yeah.
Which was bolder, I guess you could say. And actually, the author prefers the older one. They think the new one, while it's nice and sleek, it kind of loses that powerful feel. It's like they're saying the president needs a more, I don't know, commanding watch or something.
Yeah, I get that. The funny thing is, the old trapezoid case, that was actually seen as more presidential back then. So it's kind of flipped now. Some people think the new one is too, I don't know, I guess, subdued for a world leader.
Yeah.
What do you think? Does a watch like that need to have a strong design to match the person wearing it?
Yeah, maybe. It's wild how even these little design choices cause such a stir. But then things get even more interesting with the 2024 update, That's when they added those Roman numerals, the ones that are kind of broken up.
Oh, yeah. Those are really something.
Right. They first showed up on the Day-Date 40 back in, 2015, but now they're on the Summy 6. And the author is so excited about it, especially on the yellow gold one.
Yeah, those applied indices, that's what they call them. Especially how Rolex did those Roman numerals. I mean, that's a statement for sure. It just adds so much depth to the dial. It shows how skilled they are,
Yeah.
And it's funny, Roman numerals, they seem old school, right? But the way Rolex broke them up, it's like modern, even kind of architectural.
Yeah, I see that. Makes you wonder, right? Like, in a few decades, will people look at those numerals and be like, oh, that's so 2020s.
Right, like a little time capsule right on your wrist. That's what they call future vintage in the watch world. It's something that's super trendy now, but eventually it'll just be a way to tell what era a Rolex is from.
That's fascinating. Okay, so the author also describes the dial. It's just a plain white lacquer with that railroad track minute scale. But get this, they're really impressed with how easy it is to read, especially compared to some older Rolexes where the dial and hands were kind of hard to make out.
Yeah, legibility is so important. At the end of the day, a watch is supposed to tell the time, right? You'd be surprised how many watchmakers focus more on how it looks than if it actually works.
True.
But the Day-Date 36, it nails it. The white dial with the gold hands and indices, it's super clear to read.
Makes sense. And speaking of those indices, the author just goes on and on about the detail.
Oh, really something.
They mention the height, the angles that catch the light, even a little gap between the lines of the Roman numerals. And the best part, they love that Rolex used 3 for the number 4. It's not technically right, but apparently it's a nod to old clocks where they did that for balance.
That's Rolex for you. Always paying attention to little things.
Definitely. But, okay, let's talk about the price tag. The Day-Date 36 with those fancy new Roman numerals, it'll cost you a cool $39,000. That's a 30% jump from 2019.
Wow.
So the question is, what makes it worth so much? What justifies that kind of increase?
Well, that's a big question. A question that could probably fill a whole other deep dive, actually. But I can give you a few key points.
I mean, a 30% jump in 5 years? That's a lot, even for a Rolex.
Yeah, it is. But you got to think about it, right? Rolex, they don't just make tons of these watches. They keep it limited, which makes them even more desirable. And then you add in the brand's history, the fact that collectors are going crazy for them, especially in those new, booming markets. It's the perfect recipe for a price hike. Just basic supply and demand, really, but in the luxury world.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's funny, right? The article was saying those new Roman numerals, they're super modern, but eventually they're going to be what people think of when they think of this era of Rolex. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a paradox or something. How can something be trendy and timeless at the same time?
Well, think about it. Even the designs we consider classics today, back then they were probably seen as super modern, maybe even a little weird.
Hmm.
The key is that the design has to be, really well done. And it has to connect with people on a deeper level.
Yeah.
If it does, it becomes more than just a trend. It becomes a
So
classic.
you're saying those Roman numerals on the date 36, they could become a classic someday.
Yeah, I think so. They're definitely bold, a total change from the old way of doing Roman numerals.
Yeah.
But they're also beautifully made, and they just add something special to the watch.
Yeah.
Only time will tell if they become truly iconic, but they definitely have a shot.
It reminds me of something the author said. They were talking about how, for some people, the day-date is like their ultimate watch, the one they'll wear forever. But for others, it's just a way to show off how much money they have.
Yeah.
It's like people either love it or hate it. There's no in between.
You hit the nail on the head. It's like that with all luxury stuff, really.
Yeah.
Some people see it as this amazing display of skill and artistry, while others just think it's pointless and kind of tacky.
Right.
And the day-date, with all its history and, the whole power and success thing, it just makes those feelings even stronger.
For sure. But let's get back to the price for a second. The day-date has always been expensive. But a 30% jump in 5 years is wild. What else is going on there besides the whole supply and demand thing?
Well, we can't forget about inflation, right? Everything's getting more expensive.
Yeah.
But on top of that, more and more people are getting into luxury watches, especially younger people who have money to spend. And Rolex, with its image and the fact that they don't make that many watches, they're in a perfect spot to take advantage of that.
So it's like a mix of economics, brand power, and a little bit of exclusivity too. But for real watch lovers, it's got to be more than just the money.
Oh, absolutely. It's about the craftsmanship, the history, the feeling you get when you wear one. Each watch has its own story.
It's like we're not just wearing a watch, we're wearing a piece of history,
Exactly.
like a symbol of, well, whatever it means to the person wearing it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And it's important to remember that this Day-Date 36 with the Roman numerals, that's just the basic model.
Oh, wow.
So depending on the materials and all the custom stuff you could add, the price can go even higher.
That's crazy. I mean, we've only just scratched the surface of the Day-Date 36, but it's obvious that it's way more than just a watch. It's a statement, an investment, something to talk about.
And it shows how Rolex can change with the times, but still stay true to who they are.
For sure. We've covered a lot today. The design changes, how the luxury watch market works, even what makes a watch timeless. But the thing that really sticks with me is how a watch can be both timeless and a product of its time.
That's a good point. It just shows that even the most classic things are shaped by when and where they were made. And as we go forward, it'll be interesting to see how watchmakers balance the old and the new to create watches that people will love for years to come.
Yeah, it makes you think, what will the next generation of classic watches look like? And what will they tell us about our time?
Those are great questions that I'm sure watch enthusiasts will be debating for a long time.
Absolutely. Well, I think we've really unpacked the Rolex Day-Date 36. The history, the design, the price tag, even its potential to become a classic. But more importantly, I hope this has made you curious about luxury watches and all the amazing stories they tell.
Me too. Hopefully the next time you see a Day-Date 36, you'll see more than just a watch. You'll see a window into a world of craftsmanship, history, and style.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep your eyes open for those hidden gems. The ones that make the world of watches so fascinating. Man, we've really gone deep on this Date 36, haven't we?
We really have.
From, its history as the president's watch to those new design tweaks, that crazy price jump. We even talked about whether it could be a future classic.
It's been quite the journey.
It has. And thinking back to the author's original question, what makes a watch timeless? I think it's clear that it's not just about sticking to the old ways.
Yeah, true timelessness, it's more than just using classic design elements, right? It's about capturing the essence of the time it was made, but also having those qualities that will appeal to people for years to come. It's a balance, tradition and innovation, functionality and how it looks. And of course, it all has to be made with incredible craftsmanship.
Yeah, for sure. And the Day-Date 36, it seems like it's trying to do just that, mixing the classic with the modern. But, like the author said, even the most timeless designs, eventually they become symbols of a specific time.
Right, and that's part of what makes these iconic watches so cool.
Yeah.
As tastes change, they become like little snapshots of the past, capturing a moment in design history. They're almost like historical artifacts, telling us not just about the watch itself, but about the world it came from.
That's a good point. It makes me think about that question we asked earlier. If you could design a watch that would stay relevant for generations, what would you put in it?
Ooh, that's a tough one. That would challenge even the best watchmaker. You'd need a deep understanding of, well, everything. The history of watches, the current trends. The goal would be to create something that feels both familiar and new at the same time.
Right, finding that sweet spot between the old and the new. And maybe, like we've seen with the Day-Date 36, it's also about accepting that even the most timeless designs,
Yeah.
they'll eventually become, I guess, time capsules of their era.
Exactly. It's about making a watch that's both a product of its time and something that goes beyond that, leaving a legacy for future generations.
Well said. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Day-Date 36, what's your biggest takeaway? What really stuck with you?
For me, it's realizing that even something as simple as a watch, it can be so much more than just a way to tell time. It can be a way to express yourself, a symbol of success, a piece of history you can wear. It's a whole world of craftsmanship and passion.
I couldn't agree more. It's been amazing to explore the history, the design, the cultural impact of this watch. And I hope this has inspired you to see watches, especially the classics, in a new light, to appreciate the art and the stories behind them.
Yeah, I hope so. Maybe next time you see a Day-Date 36, you won't just see a watch. You'll see a symbol of enduring style, incredible engineering, and that fascinating mix of tradition and innovation.
Well put. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the Rolex Day-Date 36. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep an eye out for those hidden treasures, the things that make the world of watches so endlessly fascinating.